Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. What a 24 hours for me.
Right after we got off the air yesterday.
So he's not buying the Orioles. He is buying the Nationals, or at least trying to. And I think, it always felt like the fix was in on that one, right? Like when the Post reported, a couple months ago, for him to be an actual official buyer, he needs to fill out, with some NDA forms so that he can look at their books and look at the business and all this stuff. And even you and I were sitting there going, he doesn't need to do that. Like, that's just paperwork. Of all the people who might buy the team, I'm sure he's got a pretty good inside view of what's going on down there, so he can just stay right under the radar.
You know what he does?
Yeah.
He goes out to dinner with Mark Lerner and just says, tell me the business operations again, how this works again.
Yeah. So for all the conspiracy theorists on the next owner wants the Soto thing to be settled, well, Theodore. Well. If he does buy the team, he must be asked, did you ask for that to be settled one way or the other before you took ownership of the team? Right? Since that was a running theory of this needs to be taken care, even though I thought that was preposterous.
Sure.
There was a running theory of, the new owner doesn't want to make that decision, therefore they want the old owner to do so. And then the whole time I'm like, do you want to buy the team or not? Why in the world would you care? Like, you do what's right for the organization, and in my opinion, what was right was to kick this can down the road and let the new owner deal with it. But if the new owner happens to be the guy you go to the Palm with, maybe that conversation did happen.
Well, here's the thing. We're never going to know the answer. Because
I'm going to ask it.
Well, here's what's going to happen is they're going to ask him about it, and he's going to go, I was not consulted in any way, shape, or form about what to do with the franchise.
Unless he was, and then he'd be lying. But, I don't think that would come out.
I think you and I know Ted well enough, though, and when Ted is at these pressers that are a big deal and the vibe is usually pretty positive, right? He's going to make a little quip probably along the lines of, he's not on our team anymore, but when is his contract up? And they're going to go, 2024. He's going to go, talk to me in 2024. He's going to leave a nugget or something when that happens.
Is his middle name Bradley?
It is not.
Oh.
Soto's middle name is not Bradley.
Juan Bradley Soto?
It's not the case.
Anyway, so this is not a surprise. I think it's a surprise it's taken this long for it to pop up.
Right.
Considering we've heard really very little about the sale process, and often, at least in other sports, they pump up who the people are that are putting their names in, I think, to try to drive price up. That makes sense.
Right.
If the guy from Walmart wants to buy the Broncos, publicizing that might make the guy who owns Amazon want to buy the Broncos. You don't know what it's going to do for the price. And in this one, the whole thing's been so laid low. This is a team in a top 10 media market with a new-ish stadium in an incredible part of town.
Capital of the free world.
Hello.
I mean, on its surface, even if
you're not buying the Reds. You're not.
Even if you're not a huge sports person, you're going, wow, baseball team in the capital of America?
Hello.
That sounds like a pretty good deal.
Right. I mean, there's two prime ones right now. There's one in Anaheim and there's one here. There's two prime ones right now. But so the fact that they were never really publicizing the whole time, I was kind of like, fix is in, man. If Ted wants to buy it, if he can, short of,
he knows enough people with money around here, though.
I know. I read the Post piece, and they're like, this is what we think he's worth, and this is what we think the team's worth, and he probably can't buy it on his own. And I'm like, that's not a problem. No. He will have. One of his investors in the Wizards is the widow of Steve Jobs. She has $8 quadrillion.
Right. She makes more interest than all of us combined.
I'm going to go with Ted knows a few hedge fund guys. He's not worried about it.
In this city, no.
Getting the money to buy it is not going to be at issue. Now, I will say this, and I will go back to something that I thought initially. I still do believe, even amidst yesterday's news of, and that wasn't a surprise for us who are in the media, that Monumental bought NBC Sports Washington, and so that all of the local TV rights of the teams that he currently owns will be produced in-house at a, I guess starting now, but will start to really look like whatever Monumental, wants it to be, probably in the not too distant future. Sure. I think they're going to let NBC kind of deal with this season a little bit. But anyway, off of that news, I still believe that this may lead to, if he were successful in getting the Nats, divestment from one or both of those other teams, the Capitals and the Wizards. I don't know about the Mystics or all the gaming or the gambling, all that. I don't think so. But like, think about this just for a moment. Do you need to own the Wizards if you own the Wizards' rights, the arena they play in, and the sports book attached to it? Do you need to be the person who's outlaying the money for the product?
Right.
If you own all of those entities around it.
Right.
And, obviously, the NBA team is worth $2 billion now, too.
That's right.
So so for those who are worried about the money, I don't know. And then I had heard that there was, with an agreement that he had, that it is up to the minority stake ownership to determine if they want to buy the Wizards at a later date. And I'm not sure that that's true. I haven't seen the contracts or anything, but multiple people tell me that it is possible that one way or the other, nationals or no nationals, that he could be bought out of the Wizards by the end of the decade. It's not anytime really soon.
Yeah.
So I do think the next shoe to drop might be, I'm not saying definitively, but might be that he divests out of either the Wizards or the Capitals or both.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's distinctly possible.
So he's pulling a reverse learners, kind of. He has the
He wants to stay in the sports business.
Well, I was going to say, he has the arena, the sports book, the surrounding area, essentially, with the gaming theater that they have now,
here's
and
the
stuff
other
like
thing.
that.
Okay, so think about what they bought yesterday, NBC Sports Washington. We're in a different content space now. Like, we were talking yesterday for a while, they barely create any new programming because it's expensive to make new programming.
Sure. Yeah.
And the viewership across the board for everybody is down. Mm-hmm. Like, we're just in a new space, right? So even the show Julie does, the team creates that and sends it to them, right? It's just, they don't create that. The team creates it and sends it to them. And so the only things that are original programming now for them are pregame, postgame, and games. That's all that they're making, right? So this would lead you to believe, okay, if you're buying this, yes, you control your rights, but how are you filling the rest of that time that makes money, and why do you think you're going to get more viewers that way, right? And that's a question I'd like to hear them answer. Well, what does change the dynamic of a regional sports network is if you have a baseball team.
Yep, that fills in the time in between hockey and basketball season.
You've got the local rights to the Wizards, the local rights to the Capitals. You've got the local rights to a baseball team, we assume, if they get out of whatever this crazy Masson Orioles thing is. And Rob Manfred, come on, man.
Well,
figure it out.
So here's where I actually think with yesterday.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Ted for this. I'm on his side. I think the Nationals should have their own TV rights.
Here's what I was thinking yesterday when this news came across right after the show ended. Ted obviously knows everyone in the area, right? And I don't know how friendly he is with the Angelos family, but there's probably some communication and dialogue, right? But between sports owners, right?
I would think so, right? Listen, I said this yesterday, and I'm not afraid to say it again. He told me he tried to buy the Orioles years ago. Years ago. Long time ago.
Yeah. And so here's what I think is actually what's going to happen. If he gets the Nats, this is all hypothetical, obviously. If he gets the Nats, he's going to say to the Orioles, you're getting ready to sell too. If you let us out of the Masson deal, we'll drop the lawsuit that the team is currently has you in court for $200 million. Because whoever's buying the team has to deal with not only the Masson situation, but the courts that they're wrapped up in too. And he's going to
get this out from under this.
I'm new ownership. You're going to have new ownership. Let's just let bygones be bygones. Nobody's talking about how, DC baseball is going to ruin Baltimore baseball. We're all new here. Drop that. That drops $200 million off your books for when you sell, whenever that happens.
Which should up the value of your team.
Yes, exactly. And that way, that's not just dead money. Because at least with the Nats, they're going, we've got old contracts, but it did win us a championship. They're going with them. This is $200 million that your new owner might have to pay because it's all wrapped up in the MLB, litigation with the Masson deal. So maybe he's going to go handshake agreement.
Get out of this thing.
We'll drop the court charges. We won't come after you for that money, but now we get our TV rights back, a.k.a. I get the TV rights back and I put it on my network.
Put it on my network.
So I think
that's possible. The other one could be, I'd like you to meet my son Zachary, who also would like to buy a baseball team. Zachary owns the Orioles and I own the Nationals.
I don't think MLB would let that happen.
I know.
Let's just.
I know. That's my fever dream. That's my fever dream is that they literally own everything. Zachary buys the Ravens. That would be amazing.
I do need to know this because I don't know the rules on it. I know in the NFL, you're not allowed to have a franchise in the same city of any sport.
Well, I told you my theory on the Learners initially was kind of like, are they divesting out because they want to buy the Washington Commanders? Like, are they waiting for what they think might be an opportunity at some point? And then I still don't think that's happening, but because that's the Snyders either being forced to or wanting to sell, neither of which seem to be happening at all. Right. But I was like, it seemed kind of quick that they were getting out of this thing. Were they trying to seize on an opportunity? And the part that made sense to me was, what do they do really well? They develop real estate. What do the Commanders need? Real estate. Yeah. Bad. They need a really good site that they could totally redevelop and turn into their Nats Park area. And then all of a sudden, boy, they're the heroes of all heroes by getting them a brand new prime stadium in an area people want to go to and hang out and go get Blue Jacket, whatever. Whatever's good. So that's why I was like, why are they getting out of this thing? Do they think that Dan Snyder's going to sell the team one way or the other? And who's worked better with the city and the area in real estate development than them? Are they the ones who are hearing from Congress we're coming hard at him and blah, 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 blah? I don't know. So I got a lot of theories going on right now.
Carolyn Maloney about that one.
Well, I had heard this, that she was in trouble. I didn't realize her district got redrawn and she got put in a race with somebody who's been there as long as she has. Yeah. So who knew, right? Who knew? Whoever's going to win that race would win because a Democrat wins that district. But they redrew it and she ended up in the same district as Jerry Nadler and lost.
Right.
So she's out.
Yeah.
So that takes care of that.
That does,
That's happening on a yacht somewhere now. Yeah.
Nice.
Somewhere on a yacht
that was
happened. Anyway, but going back to all of what's happening here, I got a lot of theories going on, but going on here. So let's say he does get the Nationals, right?
Yep.
I still do think that divestment makes sense out of either the Capitals or the Wizards.
Right.
My gut would be with the Capitals, he would wait through the Ovechkin run because why not stay the owner? Actually be part of him breaking a record,
or
right? Of seeing that, being in the pictures with that.
He could sell the team the season they think that he's going to break it.
And think that there's a crazy value because you're buying into he's going to break Gretzky's record.
The most watched hockey moment in...
Yes.
I don't want to. I don't want to sound like hyperbole ever.
And it may take him a week or 2 weeks to do it. You never know.
Right.
It's like one of those things. He's got to score a goal to break it. Well, it may happen against Winnipeg, and it may not.
Right.
We don't know.
You will be capitalizing. Yeah. You know what? I don't think it is hyperbole. You will be in control of the most watched hockey moment ever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's crazy for me to say. And the way media works and how Ovechkin has been chipping away at the record. You would be selling the team and selling the moment of you're going to have the most watched moment ever. Whatever jersey ad is on the jersey will be on there forever.
Yeah.
You will get to actually sell the moment. Does he want to do that? I don't know. But I think if you sold it the year before that he's about to break it, I think they would go maybe for the highest valuation that a hockey team would go for.
So this is, it's all, there's so much here that's happening. It's hard to know what's going on. I do feel like, though, that if he gets the Nationals, that there will be divestment. And this will also go back to something we've talked about a lot, which is this too much? And it's not that I don't, I like Ted. Obviously, I like Ted a lot. And I like what he's done mainly with the two franchises. The Wizards, I'd like to see them win more. But I like what he's done mainly with them as caretakers of the organization. And I think they've done a lot of forward-thinking things. And that's why I'd actually be excited for him to own the baseball team. But at some point, there's just too much on somebody's plate for anyone to be driving the car for any one singular entity of it. So there's part of me that goes, if he does get the Nationals, I actually would prefer if he sold the Wizards.
Right.
It's just too much. Mm-hmm. How could one person run all these teams? It's too much. He's got 18 entities now. All of them need attention. Listen, he seems like a superhero to me, but at some point, too much is too much.
I've also said this as well with Ted and his ownership. And look, the track record speaks for itself with the Caps. They are the best regular season team in the last 20 years, right? They are just constantly good in the regular season, and they've fallen short in the playoffs, but they still have won a Stanley Cup.
They've had the best run of any Washington, D.C. sports professional team in the history of sports in this area.
Yep. And
I guess you could argue the Redskins are the 89s because they won 3 championships, but like that was a 10-year period where they were amazing, and then it fell off. They were pretty good, mid to late 70s, pretty good. Then they got really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Then it totally fell off, and it's never come back.
Right.
Like these guys for 15 years have been wildly competitive. I know they only won once, but they've been wildly competitive through all of it.
And what I would say, though, is the Caps and the Wizards both have gotten comfortable in their marketing and their promotions and all of that. And it just feels, is my one complaint with Monumental, is that it feels a little stale. That it just feels like there should be a little more or a little different promotion of Ovechkin or a little bit different of a promotion of Bradley Beal or whatever it is. I think everyone here has almost gotten numb to how they do business over there. I would just hate to see that cookie cutter blueprint of how they do that with their teams with the Nationals too.
Okay.
And so that's my only complaint. And once again, the track record speaks for itself. Capital One Arena sold out for every Caps game, right? The Wizards, even though they sucked last year, people still showing up to their games on the weekend. They have always showed up to
their games.
And so
they're our version of the Cubs almost. Like people show up to their games.
Right.
I've always felt like they're such the sleeping giant in town.
They are.
Because if they were ever like real, if they had a run like the Warriors, like if they had a team like that, this place would go nuts for them.
Yes.
Like go look at their attendance. They haven't been sniffing distance of a championship in 50 years.
Right.
And people show up.
Right.
They pay their tickets are expensive.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
People show up.
Right. So
like they're not giving those things away. Like they don't have to. It's crazy, really.
Right. So I would just say that's the only thing that concerns me with the Nats is we would get a cookie cutter blueprint of how they've done business over there, and that worries me a little bit because in baseball you need to have some unique outside the box way of getting to different people and stuff like that. So that's my only gripe. But it's a big one, and because I think there just needs to be a different voice, and so that's where I would be worried about it. And to your point, if he divests in one of them, in the Caps, the Wizards, or both, then that solves that problem. That those two teams would have brand new voices, kind of, and a new energy and a new promotion.
Yes, but even think about it this way too. Like so, if he divests out of them, his hand is still in them. He owns the outlet by which their TV rights are most likely to be disseminated. Where else would they go? Right? There is no NBC Sports Washington. You're not going to put them on MASN. They're not going to cut a deal with ABC7 to air all the Wizards games, right? The infrastructure is there. So it leads me to go, well, why does he need to own them then? He'd be the one putting the outlay into the player salaries. Why do that? Like, let another owner take the $2 billion you're going to get for selling the team. Let them put the product out on the court, and you're just raking in the media dollars from it. The rights, the sports book you own, the arena that you own.
Yep.
Like, they're renting that out from you. And yeah, like, things will change. Like, eventually the new owners will go, well, I want my own arena. And that would happen.
Of course.
And so, like, all those things could occur. But in the short term, it makes a lot of sense to be like, we own their media rights.
Yep.
Why wouldn't we just continue to do that and let a new owner be the outlay of the salaries?
Right.
And that makes sense to me. Like, that makes complete sense to me. And then meantime, what's the only thing, like, I'll go back to the original thought, which is, like, okay, so they just bought NBC Sports Washington. They're going to put all this programming on it. Nobody's watching the stuff on NBC Sports Washington, not because they're not doing good work, but because we're just in a new space where people don't watch TV that way anymore. And younger sports fans watch stuff on, they watch clips on video, and there's a lot of different outlets, a lot of different places to go, which is why they cut back, they cut staff, they don't make original programming anymore. That's a lot of sports around. Like, sports is still engaging, but not in the same way, right? So what makes them think that they're going to put on a bunch of shows that people are going to watch? Well, that's why you need a baseball team.
Right.
Because that covers every night for 6 months.
They buy the Nats.
That's the reality of it.
They buy the Nats. Do they get the MASN studios?
They build their own studios out at Nats Park, and it should be cool.
As it should have always been.
Yeah.
Because they used to have
They're going to be doing
there.
shows out of the sportsbook there, the sportsbook at Cap One, probably the studios. Honestly, I think this is a good thing for the Nationals if he gets them. I do think too much is too much. So, Ted, I love you, but you got to sell one of these things. It's too much. It's too much. But man, has he turned into a supernova? I mean, I think I felt all along. I'm like, the fix is in on this. Like, Ted's going to get them if he wants them, which I assumed he did, but he's going to get them, and he's just been laying low the whole time.
Yep.
And when you kept hearing nothing about the sale process other than some Korean billionaire showed up on one, run-of-the-mill Wednesday and looked at the books, I'm like, oh, these guys know. Like, he's going to swoop in. He's just staying under the radar, and he's going to swoop in at the last minute, and he's probably going to get the team.
One thing I will say, it'll probably solve a gripe that I've had with the Nats for a long time. There's a lot of turnover in their front office. What I mean by that is the ticketing and some of their baseball operations. It's been gutted for years now because of cost cutting. You and I both know Ted is going to go best technology, whatever the state-of-the-art way of doing things is how they're going to want to do things. And yes, it's going to be an initial cost sink, but that's the one thing I do have faith in that. Ted has never, ever shied away from whatever the newest technology is and whatever the new stats are to pay attention to analytics-wise. That does make me excited that if he were to get the Nats, because I know that he knows, we just got to do things by the numbers right now because look at everyone who's successful right now in baseball. So that is not lost on me on that.
It's just clear as day to me. He's a few years ahead on all this stuff. He's a few years ahead on gaming. He was a few years ahead on gambling. He's now, he bought a stake in NBC Sports Washington with the opportunity to buy it out. Guess what just coincidentally happened the same year that he ended up doing that. And then the second the Nationals officially went up for sale, there was a tremendous amount of momentum in our space media where they're going, Ted is going to turn that into monumental. They're going to buy the whole thing. Well, why would he do that if there is no specific plan to put anything that you'd have to reasonably think people are going to watch and engage with? Well, if you put a baseball team on there,
plenty of content.
Tons. And you still got the Wizards, and you still got the Capitals, and you still got the Mystics, and you could play the go-go games if you want to. You could do some of these esports things if you want to. You could do gambling shows. There's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of different things. I would caution them if they think they're going to take the world by storm and everybody's going to watch all their original programming. Just look around at sports departments in general. They have a hard time with that, but hey, I don't want to. I like new business in our area, and if you guys are, you guys want to put yourselves out there as you think you've got the answer to that question of what people want to watch. Hey, I'm all ears, buddy.
Right. The other thing he might do as well here, which gives me just so much hope, is that if he somehow pries the Nats away from the mass and stuff, he'll actually be able to fix the streaming of how that is done.
Yeah,
in local markets,
I hope so.
In local markets, this has been a thing where, yes, you can stream the Nats and the Orioles, but you can only stream them on the MASN app. And when I mean the app, it's the app on your phone or whatever you're watching on, right?
Yeah.
So you can't actually watch it on TV. I know he would have a simple fix there that there's going to be some way I'll be able to stream those games on my TV and be done with it.
Yeah,
and so
I agree.
That's another thing that, once again, I know him as a sports owner. He's going to come in and clean up a lot of things that the Nats need cleaned up. If he gets it, of course.
So let's take a break because we now need to go back to the big question, which is, we know Ted. We know how he operates. We've seen how he operates.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll be a good owner of the Washington Nationals? And we'll do that next. Bram watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Welcome back to the I Love Ted Hour.
You want me to DM him for you?
You should, yeah. I tell him congratulations.
Hi, Ted. Do you want to come on the show?
I'd DM if I could. I still don't have Twitter.
You don't have Twitter, and he doesn't follow you.
3+ weeks. I don't get it.
I see how you've just commandeered the Empire Media Twitter account. As you
I have no choice.
Yeah.
I can't get back in my Twitter account. I don't understand what happened. Every time I tell somebody that, they're like, who'd you troll? I'm like, nobody.
Right.
That's the weirdest part of the whole thing. It feels very selective. They're just like, you don't tweet enough. We're just going to shut you down. That's what it feels like. I don't know.
We had to start.
If I was working down the hall, I'd have some conspiracy theories on that one.
Silencing you.
I'm being silenced. I've been canceled. QAnon.
We had to start our new Instagram account, by the way. ESPN DMV. Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, you couldn't get that back, right?
Yeah, we couldn't get our old one back.
What's going on?
That one was that was probably our mistake. We posted a clip of Andy talking about Andrew Wiggins and COVID, and then I guess somebody found it and just kept reporting it over and over and over again.
That probably went well.
And then we lost our account.
Lost your account.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to mine. I mean, I posted nothing controversial whatsoever, so I have no idea why it got taken away from me. But whatever. Whatever, man.
At least you have Empire back now.
So I would DM Ted and just say congratulations and good luck with the Nationals and all that stuff.
He hasn't gotten them yet, though.
Come on. What do you think? Unless I guess someone could come in and
bid him. Yeah, I mean
that could happen.
Money talks, man.
Oh yeah. Well, of course it does. Yeah. Like, Ted, we like you, but they're giving us $4 billion.
Right.
Have a nice day.
Now, granted, no one has 2 pro teams to divest him to hand that over to. So, I mean...
Yeah, I think I think within the decade he's selling the Wizards. I think that's happening. And then I think with the Capitals, you make a good point about Ovechkin, but I don't know. I'd want to ride that one out and be in those pictures when he breaks that.
Here's the thing,
that's like,
though.
You're in like a historic picture with him. You're on the ice with him, honoring him when he breaks Gretzky's record. Why would you let someone else do that?
But that's the thing.
That's worth more than $1 billion to me.
Ted's been there 95% of the time, so he might still be involved.
Yeah, but you got to see it out.
Yeah, but he might still be involved, even if it's not his team anymore. I think you kind of shuffle that under the rug.
It'd be like Gary Williams, like leaving in the Final Four and being like, "Well, we got here finally."
Yeah, but
it took forever.
But here's the thing.
Bye, guys.
If you're a new owner, you probably know you should bring Ted along anyways for some kind of ceremony.
The new owner won't do that. Come on, these egos are ridiculous. Are you kidding? Who's doing that? Here's the ex-owner?
If Alex asks for it.
If Alex asks for it, sure. But I mean, like, that's not happening.
All right.
That's not happening.
Fair enough. I'm just saying.
Yeah. See, like, I'm egoless. I agree with you. I would do that. I had Frank Herzog on yesterday. You want to know why? Because I wanted to.
Right.
I'm not threatened by him, and I enjoy, speaking with him. So, but most people in those positions, they aren't that way.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
They're like, no. Ted, he's not the owner of the team. I'm the owner of the team.
I mean, you could also have that agreement in principle that we're going to hand the team over to you after that year, too. You'd always have that.
Could be.
So that could also be the case.
So like, if he goes into a season where he's like 25 away.
Yeah.
And you could go, we're selling it after the season.
Yeah, exactly.
This will be our last year. This will be the transitional year.
Right.
And then that new owner can like chill out and be down there too. That's right. A good way to go about it.
See,
it's like the Jeter Tour.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Yeah.
Ted, Alex, it's the Jeter Tour.
Final regular season game. Ted's honored as being the owner and bring the Stanley Cup here.
The silly part would be is if he had 23 goals with 4 games left.
Oh my
and then people are just like, oh my God, he might not.
Yeah, right.
And then they're almost calling another team. They're like, if we're beating you, please let him score and empty that goal. Like, just let him do it.
They're going to be like Minnesota, and Minnesota has to call up their emergency goaltender.
Yeah. Uh-oh. All right, anyway. All right, let's get back to the Nationals here.
Yeah.
So I felt the fix was in all along if he wanted to buy them, and now it's emerged that he does. Will he get them? I don't know. But right. I'd have to think that he's got the beeline for it. And partially it's just, I'm reading the tea leaves here. Nobody's reporting anything about these other groups. That's weird. It is. It's just weird.
I agree.
So
with
it comes back. It comes
very
back to
silent. Yeah.
It just feels like the fix has been in the whole time, and that Ted's probably going to buy the team, and that's kind of probably been the messaging to these other people. Short of wow me,
right.
Get Rizzo to get the Soto deal for the buy the team, and maybe we can talk.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to pay them double what they're worth. So so I think this is heading this way. All right. So what do you think? Is he a good baseball owner from what you've seen as a basketball and hockey owner? Do you think he's a good baseball owner?
I would say yes, but...
I think he is.
Yes, but the Nats have done... You can complain... I'm going to get raked over this. I already know. You complain all you want about the Nats not being loyal to their homegrown stars unless their name is Ryan Zimmerman or Steven Strasburg.
Yeah.
You can complain all
I
about them.
don't think that's not like a crazy theory.
Sure. But up until recent times, in the last 3 years, those have all worked out in terms of letting their guys walk. Now, you can argue...
Bryce Harper is an MVP.
No, that's what I was going to say. You can argue Bryce Harper all day long.
And the other guy could get votes for MVP.
Sure.
And they've got a third guy who gets votes for MVP.
Right.
So
that's what I'm saying.
It's not like... This isn't the Belichick thing where they let him go a year earlier and there's depreciating assets. They're not.
This is why I said the last 3 years, because Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, and Bryce Harper all are under that time frame.
Scherzer I would put in a different bucket because of his age, but still.
And
go ahead.
Expiring deal, right?
Yes.
But before then... Name me the free agent that walked and worked out signing the big deal.
None of them were of this level, though.
Right, but
Rendon was. But I will give them a pass on him because he and Strasburg came up at the same time, and the money he got from the Angels was utterly ridiculous and stupid.
Yes,
at his age.
But the Ian Desmond of the world, the Jordan Zimmerman of the world, whoever else you want to name that was a star player for them and homegrown, they let walk and sign a big deal elsewhere, and it usually worked out for them. And now in the last 3 or 4 years, because they're not competitive, they've had to make some tough decisions and traded for lottery tickets, essentially. And you can talk all you want about Josiah Gray. We don't know if that's going to be an answer there. We think Keeper Ruiz is going to be an answer for catcher for a while.
At this juncture, I would say Josiah Gray is a starter, but he's not your ace.
Third starter at best is what I've been saying.
Yeah.
And then you had to trade.
At this point, we'll see.
Yeah, and you had to trade Juan Soto for 5 lottery tickets, essentially, right? Because you weren't going to be competitive. Now you could make this argument that Ted thinks with his heart in that situation, tries to keep Juan Soto. And
I think he goes out of his way to keep Juan Soto.
Right. He could try to, but at the same time, he's going to bid himself up. And then all of a sudden, if he hands Juan Soto $600 million and says, well, you've got to be the guy, that is not how baseball works. You can't put that much money into one player and expect to compete everywhere else. So.
Ted I've complained about him being too loyal.
Right.
That the big mistake that he made in the most recent team that was competitive was Otto Porter.
Yep.
That was done out of loyalty. That wasn't done that was done because he went to Georgetown and everybody likes him and he's a pretty good player and he never should have gotten a max deal and they had an out and we were all screaming, we're not going to be mad at you. Let him go.
Yep.
You do have to make some tough decisions in sports sometimes. And let him go. You have your 2 stars. You could find another guy who's going to hit a bunch of open threes.
Yep.
Right. That's somebody you give an NBA shooter open threes constantly. They're going to make a lot of them. Right. You don't have to pay them that. But I'm with you on Wall and Beal are different, and that's why you pay them the money that you pay them. That's where I think that was the unraveling to me, was that deal, that he did that. So I've gotten on him about being too loyal. But there are times like when we're talking about Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, all these other guys, Rendon, I guess, could fall in that bucket, but some others too, that were here, many of them as homegrown as it gets, and they're just not here and they're starring for other teams, that I then go back to Ted and go, I appreciate your loyalty.
Sure.
Because here I am today calling them my ex-girlfriend because I'm pissed about the latest one because I just felt like there was no reason to let him go.
Well,
like he was just too good, and I don't think Ted, even if Scott Boras is another animal that he hasn't dealt with NBA agents, he's dealing with a different animal in Boras. I still think Ted, because of his loyalty, would go, fine, we'll wait this out, and we're going to tug at your heartstrings. I'm going to have a personal relationship with this player, and then we're going to talk about it, and then we'll see where we are as time goes by, and maybe we make that decision. But I don't think, if Ted was the owner today, I don't think that trade would have happened. I really don't think it would have happened. Even if Rizzo told him he wanted to do it, I don't think it would have happened. Watch what's happened with Bradley.
Right.
Look what's happened with Bradley.
Yeah.
You're like, won't do it.
Yeah.
He literally, it's like he can't do it. So the loyalty part of it is, I think he will go out of his way to try to keep people like this.
Yeah.
Will he be able to? That's up to Boras and the client. But I don't think he would do what the Lerners just did with Soto. I don't think he would do that.
I'd agree.
You'd have to make a decision. Do you think that's good or bad? Because there are some people that are, and I'll never agree with this, that think that Rizzo and the Lerners did the right thing a couple weeks ago, and I don't, personally.
What would happen, though, is all the guys I just talked about, though, they would probably be under contract, and you don't know if they would be able to sign a guy like Juan Soto, because it would put them into the luxury tax threshold or whatever it is.
That's right.
And they wouldn't be competitive because they'd have all these guys under contract that might be hurt or aging or whatever.
Yes.
So that's all. And we don't know. We don't know like what that team would actually look like today. But that's my only reservation with that. Because in baseball, I feel like it doesn't work out more often than it does.
So there's 2 different salary structure, scale, and limitations out of these leagues. But the one thing that baseball and basketball does have in common is the luxury tax.
Yep.
Ted doesn't play that game.
Right. Correct.
He doesn't. He is not going to be like the Warriors owners. He doesn't do it. Okay?
Right.
So I would take that as a hint of he is not going to have a ridiculous payroll for the sake of having a ridiculous payroll just because he happened to have a lot of really good players. He will pick and choose. And the other part of that is in the NBA, there is a cap. He knows what the max is to spend on these guys, and that's it. There is no Scott Boras. This is the number we can give you. You either want it or you don't. If you don't, there's actually a ramification financially for you to not take it because you get more if you take it from us, but we will then trade you. Baseball's a different animal. Boras knows he runs out the clock on people, he becomes a free agent. There's no mechanism to stop this from happening. There is no ceiling on what a person can make. And so he's cold-hearted and does this to all of these teams with these superstar players. And we don't know how Ted would handle something like that because all along with the Brad stuff, as much as I thought they probably should have traded him, I did know what the top line number was. That was always just there. That was off the table in terms of a discussion. And Brad did the right thing by taking the most money he could possibly make. I mean, I know you got to put your ego aside of trying to win, and maybe he does win here, but he can't seriously think he's going to this year or next year now.
Yeah, of course.
But he took the most money, and I would argue do that. You have a good relationship with the team. You have a good relationship with the community. No one's pressuring you to do all this stuff. Take the maximum dollars. It's the right thing to do. Take the loyalty and let them put your number up in the rafters and have this great career here. What we don't know what will happen is, even with that in line where you're like, I don't think he would treat the Juan Soto situation the same because I've seen what he's done with John. I've seen what he's done with Brad. I've seen what he's done with Ovechkin, Backstrom, Carlson, his homegrown really good players. He rewards them. He keeps them. But it's under a salary cap. I don't know how he'll handle a non-salary cap situation. And I don't even think he probably knows how that would happen.
Not as much with the Wizards because you just don't have this problem in the NBA because when you have talent, you sign them, right?
Yes.
But the Capitals have had to make tough decisions because he's been loyal to those guys. Jacob Vrana's in Detroit scoring 1 million goals because they had to move him.
Same problem. He was too loyal. I've been saying this about the Capitals. I'm like, you were too loyal to some people, which put you in a situation that this team isn't as potentially competitive as it should be. You needed to get younger people out there, but you're too loyal. There's a big part of me that goes, though, why am I complaining about that? Don't I want my ownership to be loyal to our stars?
Sure, but
there is a fine line, though.
At the same time, too, that list goes on and on and on. It's Jacob Vrana, it's Andre Burakovsky, it's every goaltender before Holtby, and then after Holtby, they didn't have a goaltender, essentially, because they were loyal to two young guys, right?
Yep.
They've just put themselves in a position where these are our guys, right? And can you do that in baseball? I guess, but we'll see. The good thing with this, though, is I would say in the short term, this to wrap up my whole point here with Ted as being a good owner, I say yes. And if you're a Nats fan right now, it could be good for you in the short term right now because Trey Turner's a free agent this year, and that's a nice little, hey, I'm here as the owner, and I know we're not going to compete for a little bit, but we like this guy, and could bring him back.
Yeah, and he's going to go 10 years, $326 million.
Sure, but they're not paying anyone next year. Their payroll is like $60 million total. Yeah,
Strasburg, Corbin.
Yeah, but they're
stuck with two very bad contracts.
Sure.
That's a lot of money.
Sure, and you can't convince me though that the
But
Nats,
outside of that, that is it.
You also though you might be able to fix that internally because we've heard nothing about how the Nats can't develop anybody. I'm convinced if you get the right mind of people here and the right analytic people in here, they can't at least make Corbin serviceable, right? So that's a whole other issue there is how much does he invest on the off-the-field stuff.
We get a prayer on that one, but maybe.
Sure, but I just think there's got to be something to that they can't fix him at all, right? That's a little much to me. But I just mentioned Turner. I would say you mention in 2 years, Juan Soto's a free agent too. And if they're in a better spot and they need to put themselves over the top like they've told us, that's another thing where Ted's going, that's double dipping for us because you're bringing a guy home and you're putting the team over the top. So
hello, Juan. May I call you Bradley? It makes me comfortable to call you Bradley.
If Juan Soto re-signs here, your team is the Nationals. I hope you know that. Like, you're recommitting.
Be still my heart.
You're renewing your vows.
We will. Yeah, that's fine.
You're not
There's
the only
plenty
one.
of times people break up and they get back together.
He signs Juan Soto.
I didn't say this is forever. I said this is for now. I'm done with them for now because of what they did. It's just ridiculous.
So that's what I'm getting at, though, and Ted knows that. I bet you Ted knows my season ticket base doubles if I re-sign that guy.
Probably.
And I'm guessing it's not. He actually thinks with his heart and his wallet a little bit more, whereas the Lerners are a little more cutthroat in how they've dealt with things.
I think he would be a good owner, but until he is put to the test of how will you deal in a non-salary cap environment, we really don't know. But I have seen evidence of how he handles a salary cap luxury tax situation.
Yep.
And he ain't into that. So, this isn't going to be the Dodgers or the Mets or the Angels or some of those teams that are willing to do that, to go to those lengths. I think that's pretty clear. I have one thing for you from Bet Online. It has been almost apparently 40 games since a starting pitcher has won a game for the Washington Nationals.
Yep.
So they put lines on who will be the next starting pitcher to win a game for the Washington Nationals.
It's going to happen this weekend.
You want to guess who your favorite is?
It's either going to be Cade Cavalli, who starts on Friday, or...
He's not even on the board.
He's not? I put him on the board.
They just announced that was happening, right?
Yeah, that just happened. So let's see. You have Anibal Sanchez today. He'll go up against George Kirby. It's not going to happen.
He's the third choice on the board to be the next national starter.
Probably just because he's playing today. And then the rotation isn't set officially, I believe, for the weekend. But I'm going to go with Josiah Gray as your favorite.
You get plus 375 on him.
Okay.
The plus 200 favorite is Paolo Espino to be the next starter to win a game for the Nationals. Your second choice on the board is your boy Corbin.
I would not put a penny for anything on Corbin.
Sanchez plus 350, Josiah Gray plus 375, Eric Fetty plus 400. Cavalli's probably being added to this list now. That announcement just came that he was making his debut.
With that favorite, they're playing the odds here of the actual starters. Mark Zuckerman has the updated rotation. You have, starting today, as I said, Anibal Sanchez, Cavalli on Friday, Espino starts on Saturday, Corbin starts on Sunday. So
and remember, this isn't them winning, it's the starter recording a win.
Yes, exactly. They are playing the worst team, one of the worst teams in baseball, in the Reds this weekend. So they're hoping
that's right, hon.
It's one of those guys getting it. So.
Okay. All right. Let me take a quick break. I want to weigh in on the passing of Len Dawson next. Bram, watch the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital. It's really interesting. Yesterday, if you missed the show yesterday, we had great Frank Herzog on, who called the Washington Redskins games, for years, and in particular during the glory days. And we had him on, of course, because Sonny Jurgensen's number is going to be retired by the team this year. It'll be the fourth player number to be retired, so no one's going to wear number 9. They're going to do that at the Cowboys game. And, of course, Frank, Sonny, and Sam were the soundtrack of sports in this town for a long time, and I was really happy that Frank took the time to come on and talk about Sonny. When I was thinking about Sonny spent 50-some years in the organization.
Yep, absolutely.
He spent 11 as a player, as a quarterback. I can't believe it. When I saw the number, he played 18 years. I didn't realize it was 7 in Philadelphia. That's a long time to have been there before they actually decided, okay, we've had enough, and traded him. And, of course, he had a great run here in Washington, ended up in the Hall of Fame. He owns a couple of marks that haven't been met since. No one's thrown 30 touchdown passes in a season since him, which is actually embarrassing.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, right? It's not like he threw 50. It's like where it's like, well, that's a crazy number. Like he's 30. Everybody, there's 10 guys that do that every year now, and we haven't had one do it in 50 years. Anyway, whatever. But it was, we're talking about him because he ended up transitioning to become a broadcaster. And I thought what Frank said yesterday, which was really interesting, because I asked him, did he kind of end up loving being Sonny Jurgensen, kind of the voice of the team, as much as he loved being the football player? Frank was like, no. He goes, it was always football for them. That they liked this, but that was the thing for him and Sam.
Yeah.
And, so I saw Len Dawson died, and Len Dawson had a very similar effect on the Kansas City organization. He played as a quarterback for them for a long time, and then became a team broadcaster for a long time, and then he was and this is, boy, things are different now. He was like the lead sports anchor in Kansas City for the top rated, he was their George Michael for a long time. In Kansas City. And I remember Len Dawson as a kid because he was part of the initial runs of Inside the NFL, which was at the time, that was earth-shattering for me. For someone pre-internet, that was must-watch television. You got the NFL Films highlights, John Facenda, and then Harry Callis doing the voiceovers of the highlights, and Len Dawson did the leads into this. Nick Bodicani, who was on that show, longtime Dolphin, who passed away not that long ago as well, was part of it. It was, as a sports junkie, it was must-watch television. It was the best produced show at the time. And that's how I got to know Len Dawson. So it's weird. Like, I think there's generations of people in the same way that, like, there's generations of people that, of course, remember Sonny, I guess, as a quarterback, if you're old enough to remember that, but really know him for kind of his folksy way of being part of the radio broadcast for such a long time. For Kansas City fans, the same thing. Len Dawson spent 55 years with that organization and similarly was kind of the voice of the team for a very, very, very long time. So that was sad to see that he died.
Saw that in the iconic photo of him in Super Bowl I, I think it is, of him.
It's either one or two.
I think
it's one.
Smoking a cigarette and has a fresca underneath his seat.
It's sweet.
Just old school and stands the test of time of cool, pretty much.
I'd like to actually recreate that at a Commanders game this year. I'm smoking a cigarette with a fresca.
Have a dart, yeah.
Yeah. Just have a little dart. You need one every once in a while. Halftime. I'm just having a dart, guys. Don't worry about it. So there's that, and then I saw
they would love for you to do that.
I'm just paying homage to Len Dawson, guys.
Great imagery for the new Commander's name.
Yeah. Oh man, and then I saw that Don Coryell, who is not unlike Jake here, he is a bizarre person who for some reason has not been able to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He literally changed offense. I don't know why in the world when we talk about all these crazy passing stats, it all comes from his offense.
Yeah.
It's his offense. He's the one that did this. Don Coryell was the main coach that Joe Gibbs worked under. Yep. Joe Gibbs came here, took a lot of the theories that he took, which was, Gibbs was known for, the hogs and counter Trey and Riggo and all the great run game. But the dominating part of it was the downfield passing game. He would go play action and hit Clark, Monk, Sanders, whoever it was. Yep. And that was the devastating part of the Washington offense. That came from Air Coryell. At the time, had Dan Fouts ever won a Super Bowl, I think he would go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but because the Chargers never even got into the Super Bowl when he was playing at his height. But Dan Fouts was the main recipient of the Air Coryell offense. And there are so many people like Gibbs, the Turner family, that have kind of taken these concepts and turned it into modern offense. I can't believe he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
I don't even I think maybe because he didn't win a Super Bowl. I guess that's probably why. Because Bill Walsh won a lot of Super Bowls, and Bill Walsh is known as the godfather of the West Coast offense. And it's a lot of the theories that are still in offense now came from Bill Walsh, and he's celebrated this way. That's what Don Coryell was too.
Yeah,
for the downfield passing game, really, that's what he was too. And I can't believe he's not in the Hall of Fame, but he is up for it now, and that's a void that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Chad Brown, former Pro Bowler, is going to join us. He's been calling the Seahawks games. The Broncos games. I'm dying to hear how Russell Wilson's doing. We'll get his thoughts on the Commanders as well. Who's that?
No, I just said you had Russ on the brain.
I have Russ on the brain lately. I got Russ on the brain. I want to read these two Bill Barnwell pieces. He's one of my favorite NFL writers. He picked the 5 teams he thinks are going to take a slide back, and the 5 teams he thinks is going to take a step up this year. And we'll read I'm holding my breath. Let's see what he thinks about us. Bram Washington Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.